look, it's another person doing opinions on the internet. Wow, look at that. But sometimes sharing your opinions about books can be a little bit tricky because everyone has different opinions. You know, take my channel for example. I've looked at a lot of very well-loved books that I turned out to not love quite so well, and sometimes the tables get turned on me and I end up really enjoying a book that a lot of other people, namely my book club, don't enjoy, and that's certainly the case today because I'm looking at Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. Joan Lindsay was an Australian creator of all types. She was a painter, a poet, a playwright, and a novelist, of course. Picnic at Hanging Rock is probably the most famous thing that she's done. It's about these 3 girls and a teacher from a boarding school who go missing during the school picnic to Hanging Rock in 1900. Things get even more mysterious when an investigation turns up no evidence and the last person to see the girls has lost her memory of the day. The book starts right off on Valentine's Day as the Appleyard School for Young Ladies is getting ready for the big picnic at Hanging Rock. We get these quick introductions to the students and staff, and we're also given introductions to the themes that Lindsay will be developing throughout this story. The school was built as the result of a colonial project. A lot of the students aren't even from Australia, and almost all of them come from wealth. There's also this really strict sense of decorum at the school, which dictates how the girls dress and act and even talk. So when they leave the confines of the school, suddenly we get this shift to these lush descriptions of nature, which do a great job of contrasting these two worlds. There's even a change that comes over a lot of the characters. They're even allowed to take their gloves off. These may sound like insignificant little details, but this is one of those books that demands you pay close attention to it because even subtle things have a lot of importance for the story. There are ominous little hints of what's to come. There are these subtle cues as to the deeper hidden feelings that characters have for one another, and even some of the personality traits have something to do with the theme. So for example, a lot of characters are obsessed with keeping track of things, whether it be time or money or mapping out an area. Yet as they approach Hanging Rock, they start to lose track of these things in a way that suggests that the rock defies explanation or just can't be quantified. And all of this leads so well into the disappearance itself. Yet even when it happens, you're just completely bewildered by it, because the details don't even add up. Like, even basic aspects of the timeline are in contradiction with each other. And all this stuff contributes to a really great sense of otherworldliness surrounding the mystery. Through the course of the investigation, we also get introduced to these 2 guys named Michael and Albert who witnessed the girls climbing up Hanging Rock just before they went missing. Now, the book spends an odd amount of time on these 2 guys, and it's mostly because it's following them trying to piece together the mystery in their own way. And they seem to have this strange draw, not only to the rock, but to the girls of the boarding school. And as the book goes, you start to learn that they have some pretty striking similarities in the way that they were brought up, especially relating to their class or things like that. If you're going into this book expecting smoking gun clues or scary suspects hiding around every corner, then you might want to give this book a pass because it's incredibly enigmatic and it abandons the typical story beats of a whodunit mystery in favor of forcing the reader to linger in uncertainty and pay close attention to the details as opposed to just laying back and letting the book tell you all of its mysteries by the end. So the thematic things I've been bringing up aren't just random. I truly believe that this book can be figured out and that the thematic aspects are crucial to sort of unlocking the mystery. So it's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to engage with it on that level. But if you're not, then you're probably going to come away feeling kind of frustrated and bored with it. The search for the missing women continues, but most of the second half of the story is just focused on how the disappearance affects the community and the school especially. We see these curated, delicate facades of these supposedly subdued characters begin to fracture as the stress of the situation mounts. Lindsay does an excellent job at saying so much with so little about each of the characters. There's unrequited love between some characters, or unspoken tragedy between others, and others just completely unravel over the course of the story in a way that suggests that this conflict between like inner hidden nature and order and propriety, on the other hand, are being waged not only throughout the whole story, but within each of the characters, but never in a way that's overt. And some people might be pretty bored by the subdued nature of this book, but I was just so riveted at like paying close attention and picking out all of these little undercurrents and realizing how they all bear some significance to the central mystery of the story. I did have a few issues with this book, the main one being that some of the scenes between Michael and Albert started to drag, especially towards the end of the book. Like, I understand why they're there, it's just, they could have used a little bit of editing down. The other thing is that the muted tone of the book, while it's very interesting for letting the readers decide which details are important, can sometimes work against the story by making it feel a little bit listless. But even with these problems in mind, I would urge anyone who reads this book to just think about what it's trying to say and how it's using the disappearance of these girls and the things that come about as a result of that to critique the society that it's set in. There's a lot that Lindsay says about gender, class, colonialism, and miscommunication between people. We see how all of these contradictions of this rigid society are laid bare when they're faced with something that they can't understand or that's outside of their ability to control. But although this book treats its central mystery in a pretty abstract and esoteric kind of way, Lindsay is clearly playing off of the feelings of real-life mysteries, because the disappearance in Hanging Rock bears an uncanny resemblance to real-life missing persons cases. In fact, this book came out just 1 year after Australia's most infamous case of disappeared people, which is the 3 Beaumont children, a case which has not been solved even 60 years later. Real mysteries like this are haunting because they aren't solved. They don't seem to conform to any sense of logic, they don't wrap up at the end like a storybook mystery, and I think Lindsay plays that to great effect, especially in the haunting final pages as the events that are set in motion by the disappearance reach their climax. I give Picnic at Hanging Rock a 7.5 out of 10. It's certainly not for everyone, and even for me it dragged in a few places, but overall I really enjoyed it. It was esoteric, it was haunting, there were a lot of critiques of society, it taps into that feeling of real life disappearances that draws me in so strongly. Yeah, there's just a lot going for this book if you're willing to take your time with it and be patient and think about what you're reading. I should also add that this book has a final chapter which Lindsay wrote but was convinced to cut out of the final draft. So any copy you find won't have that final chapter, but now that she's dead, you can find it online for free. And guess what? It spells out the ending in a much more literal way so that you understand it, and I was right. I interpreted this book without that final chapter, I made a guess about what happened, and I was right. And you know why? It's because of the deeper themes. That's right, my big-ass nerd brain solved this book, and you can too. Or can you? Who knows? I don't know. You should give it a shot though. See if you like it. And there's also a movie, which I think is pretty good, but I personally prefer the book. But yeah, that's it for my review. What did you think if you've read this book? Do you have any theories? Do you want to read this book? Did I convince you? Or are you like my friend who called it a whole lot of nothing? Find out for yourself. That's it, I'm done. See you later. Bye.